Lovely to have you all here. I'm going to work this through the sporting analogy. John, I'll start with you. If we had to pick a sport that reflects the state of the construction industry right now, what would it be? Are we the national swim team, the Dolphins, are the current world champs, just setting records pretty much every time they hop in the pool and leaving the world in our wake? Are we more like the Carlton Football Club, rapidly self-immolating to the delight of every other opponent in the competition? Or perhaps in the middle ground, are we sort of like the Wallabies? When we're great, we're amazing, but too often we're telling ourselves an honourable loss is good enough. What do you think?
Well, Adam, listening to some of the publicity last night with Bede's conference about some of the challenged projects in big infrastructure across the country, I actually think maybe we're like that crazy new trend, you know, the run it straight. You just sort of run at each other as fast as you can, and whoever's left standing at the end of the contract wins, you know, so that's not a good position. But I think the Wallabies is probably the one, or maybe the Fremantle Dockers for those in the AFL world, where honourable loss is a terrible thing that's now being talked about. So particularly those big, complex infrastructure projects where we work so hard, really, really hard to get jobs done, but frequently and more recently at a huge cost, you know, financially, culturally and reputationally. And that's just not good for anybody. So, you know, I think that's become the norm, and that's just not okay. So I think we've got to move from, just survival to success. You know, I think we've got to get better at some of those big matches in the sporting analogy, and we all know what the problems are. So I think we've got to be cleverer on procurement. We've got to engage and collaborate earlier, and we've got to set up incentives in projects so that projects can win, not just finish.
Bede, extending on that, there is a saying in sport, it's cliche, but it's true, that defence wins games, but offence wins championships. As an industry, are you spending too much time on the defensive and not enough time setting up plays that are going to drive true innovation, growth and championship performance?
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. Look, for my sins, I'm an Essendon supporter. So I grew up with a great team. We actually, I've experienced 4 premierships, and in the 80s we had 4 brothers called the Danaher brothers, who were absolute legends of the club and played in many premierships. Anthony Danaher had a son, Joe Danaher, who I think is probably the most talented footballer I've seen. Played at Essendon, wasn't successful, comes up to Brisbane. Under Chris Fagan, plays in a flag. So what we saw there was a player who had flair, amazing ability, and a coach who could set a game plan but enable flair to happen. In our industry, I think we crush flair. We're so worried about things going wrong. We're so defensive and concerned about what we could stuff up that we actually aren't allowing the Joe Danahers to actually fire and to show all of the ability that they've got. So yeah, we're in a defensive state in our industry, have been for probably 20 years that I've seen it. And there's huge talent that we have in Australia, and we're going to really need to unleash it, especially for these Olympics.
Should have chatted with you before, Bede. As a Sydney Swans fan, that is officially the last reference we will have to the 2024 AFL Grand Final today. Okay, Annabel, back to you, both within the association, but also your work at Laing O'Rourke. To work the sporting analogy further, when it comes to reform, as we've said in this video, reform's had a massive pre-season. You know, the cliche is reform's been training the house down in the gym. There's great intent, and we've drawn up a few new players, but how do we translate that into game day performance? How do we stop bad jobs, poor practices, even making it onto the sporting field?
It's a big question, but I think of kids' sport. I've got a couple of kids, and we've moved to a situation where everyone's rewarded for participating, and that gets criticised for encouraging mediocrity. But it's a complete opposite to our industry, where you're rewarded. It's a zero-sum game. You're rewarded. Well, there's no winners really. So I think what we've got to do is fundamentally shift the way we procure. We haven't changed anything in 15 years. To what John said, to look at how do you reward collaboration? How do we get contractors and clients in earlier? How do we remove all the people on the sidelines telling us what to do and actually just bring the people that actually can create change into the room much earlier? So I think we're seeing it internationally. We're actually seeing it in some of our states really successfully happening. So yeah, I think procurement's the key.
And at the ACA, you're also talking over the next 12 months of focusing on productivity and commercial reform. That's another reset of the game plan. How do you make inroads there? What's on the agenda?
I think the big focus for us is data. I don't know how many voted for data before. But if you look at another sporting analogy, Moneyball, the film, I don't know who's seen that.
Yeah.
You had a small team selecting representatives based on statistics, not just on reputation, and they had huge success. We collect huge amounts of data on everything, but we don't use it to get outcomes or to create reform. I think the culture standard was an example where we said we're going to lean in and use data, and now it's telling us it makes us more productive, so we have to lean in. So that's what we're going to do at the ACA, so really start to have data-driven conversations and focus on more things, and hopefully that will create the change that we need.
John, let me give you a sporting analogy here, but go with me. In the AFL and the NRL, we've got increased knowledge now about concussion and protecting players in the short term. Sometimes you've got to make a hard decision in the short term to avoid worse damage later on. Or at the team level, sometimes a team has to realise that premiership window is closed. We have to end this now and just rebuild. Do you need a similar mindset in construction? Do you occasionally need to look at a project early and go, this is unsustainable? Let's make a tough, maybe ugly call now to prevent further long-term damage?
Yeah, I think absolutely. First thing to stop a few concussions is to stop that run it straight contracts so they don't knock each other out. I think we do need to be more discerning and perhaps a little bit brave. So when contract models come out that we honestly think are unsustainable, or just the procurement model or contract form is just not fit for purpose for that particular circumstance, we don't just say, no, not participate. I think we start by trying hard to work with the whole group of stakeholders to improve that model, make it worthwhile, and convince people why there's a better model that's good for everybody. But if we can't do that, then I think we should be brave and say no and go and pursue something else, and not just have collective amnesia on your theme of knocking out. That's all just going to be okay at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it is, we should think about it like a concussion protocol. Stop, think about it, see if we can fix it, and do that first before just running headlong in and causing greater long-term damage, as you said.
Annabel, we have seen some signs of alignment between industry, government, unions, particularly on the point around culture. We saw a great video to that effect. How do we take that alignment into other areas of the game, especially commercial frameworks and arrangements, so you're not just playing hard, but actually that obvious, understandable, wantable goal of everyone winning together?
Yeah, I think we've had huge success with culture and built some trust amongst ourselves. We've got to capitalise on that. But we can't change the culture, don't change the commercial models, which are creating this adversarial environment. So I think we've got to stop selecting contractors on lowest price. We've got to recognise that everyone comes with a vested interest. So clients want certainty and value for money. Unions want good pay and safety, and we want to just earn a fair return as contractors. And I think there's an opportunity to create an environment where we can all win, we can all be rewarded, but we just need to share risk better, reward collaboration, reward productivity, because what you reward will motivate us.
Bede, if there's one thing I love, it's a good tunnelling project. Tell us about this project. You're rightly proud of it. It sounds as though there's a bit of a different approach, a new game plan being rolled out there. If people aren't familiar, talk us through the project.
So this is the Western Harbour Tunnel project that we're doing with Transport for New South Wales, and look, it took a very, very different approach, both from a Transport for New South Wales point of view, a very collaborative contract which is going extremely well, but also a very brave decision for Transport for New South Wales government to take on our idea of going about the tunnel differently and doing a tunnel instead of a merged tube. And I think, if I fast forward 10 years, how is infrastructure going to be actually procured? How are we going to do it? We're seeing it in energy now. The private sector are doing all of the energy transition pretty much, even transmission lines and certainly renewables, waste to energy plants that we're doing. And I really wonder in 10 years whether transport infrastructure won't be the same. I can see us actually, I want to get from A to B, we need 100,000 people a day, tell us what your solutions are, which is vastly different to a very, very prescriptive approach that we're at today. So if we think about the available technology and what we might be doing, or what our kids or the next generation might be doing in 10 years' time, I believe it's going to be vastly different. So projects that have that approach, that partnering approach, is starting that journey to get to where I believe the industry is going to have enormous change over the next 10 years.
You used the word bravery, and that's fascinating. I mean, it's brave for you to suggest a genuinely different way to do something. It's brave for Transport for New South Wales to say yes.
Yep.
How did it go? Did you make a fairly radical proposal and they just went, yeah, totally, that's cool? Did they arc back? Was there some subtle negotiation? You have to buy each other a couple of drinks? How did you get to this great new place?
Yeah, there was a couple of drinks in it, there's no doubt. 100%. It was about, I think, mutual recognition on the way through. I mean, the procurement process, we had ideas, we spoke to them about it, we had to progress those ideas in a very professional way so that Transport could be comfortable and confident that it could be done in that way. So you don't just go, I want this idea, and you're not listening to me, and then, at the end of it, like, there was a lot of millions of dollars of effort that went into doing that correctly. So it's a message I say to our people is be brave, but be professional about it. Present an idea. Don't just whinge about something, come up with a solution, but present it in a way that the counterparty, the client, a designer, whoever it might be, can actually grasp it because you've given them enough detail to do so. And that can tend to be a problem, a lot of whinging on the contractor side as opposed to what's the solution that we can come up with here.
It's one of the things I found so exciting about the conversations last year. This is a dynamic space and there's so many items of reform on the agenda that there's possibly too many. So I'll get you all just quickly in wrapping up. 12 months from now, what's a change you'd like to have seen? A genuine, realistic, ambitious improvement to the sector? Where would you like us to be at FF26? I'll start with you, John.
Perhaps not that ambitious, it's pretty simple, but if more projects were just set up for success at the front, more pre-planning, get that right up front with procurement models, so that's set up not just technically but culturally and commercially, so you give the delivery teams half a chance of actually getting it done on time and on budget, and maybe that way we won't have to call in the TMO so often and the Wallabies will win a few more games.
Bede, where would you like to be 12 months from now?
Look, from an internal point of view, I'd like our company to be vastly going about every aspect of it, whether it be HR, commercial, quality assurance and safety, in an extremely more efficient way via technology. And if we can do that, we'll enable and we'll be leaders for clients moving that way also.
Annabel, FF26, what would you like to have seen change by then?
I think if we can be set up in a way that we can do something differently, and that will involve allowing us to collaborate earlier, just as John said, so that we've got models that allow us to collaborate and do something different, whether it's through data or through modern methods, something that opens it up so that we can actually create better outcomes together.
Exciting times. Please thank Annabel, John and Bede. Thank you so much for the conversation, guys.